We all need warm socks, especially this time of year. For the entire month of December, we have been collecting socks as part of our Q13 Season of Giving sock drive. It has been absolutely overwhelming. We heard from a number of organizations that this is really what they need this time of year. This gentleman stopped by an event that I was hosting with DK Metcalf of the Seahawks, and this guy brought almost 8,000 pairs of socks. We said, you know what, we can't take them here. Can you please stop by our station and drop them off? And he did, literally, a truck full of socks, and it's just been unbelievable. I want to chat now with one of the recipients of some of these socks. This is Dennis Kelly. He's the executive director of MercyWatch. That's an outreach group that helps the unhoused and unsheltered in Snohomish County. Dennis, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for what you do for our community.
Well, thank you, and it's an honor to be a recipient of the socks. It's a blessing for our wonderful clients who are on the streets, because the number one thing they ask for is a fresh pair of socks.
Why is that?
You know, I think that when people are on their feet all day, and sometimes all day and all night, sometimes they don't change their socks for weeks. So if they don't encounter someone with a pair of socks, a fresh pair of socks, their feet start to be challenged, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And so a fresh pair of socks allows them to dry them out. We have a team of doctors and nurses and others that work with them. And the number one challenge is foot care. We're constantly paying attention to issues with feet, and dry socks just really are a blessing.
Talk a little bit about MercyWatch and what you do in the community.
So we are the first entity in the state to do what's called homeless street medicine. We actually are on the streets about 7 days a week, providing care up in Snohomish County primarily. And our doctors, our nurses are looking out for disease and things that impact this very vulnerable community.
Oh, no question about it. And what do you in particular see a need for? I mean, socks, you touched on that, but I mean, obviously there are a number of needs.
Well, it's interesting because we live in the second best economy in the country from a state perspective, right? Yet our housing affordability is ranked 48th, so almost last place. There's a big, wide gap between have and have not here. And a lot of our folks who are on the streets, are dealing with poverty, basically, and are maybe bringing in, let's say, $700 a month in disability, but they just cannot afford to be housed. So many of them live in their cars, probably about 35 to 40% here in King County and also in Snohomish County.
Why do you think we're seeing the problem that we're seeing now? I mean, we see it in Seattle. It's becoming more and more visible all the time. Snohomish County, it's a big deal. Pierce County is dealing with the same thing. Why do you think it is growing exponentially? At least it appears that way.
It sure does. I think one of the greatest challenges is the complexity of homelessness, because it's not like a simple answer where you can look at, let's say, the opioid addicted, who are probably about 35 to 40% of our population on the streets, and say that's the problem. Some of it is mental health disorder and the fact that we don't have places where people can go when they're suffering from extreme, mental health issues.
Right.
And then there are just a lot of people who really were clipped in 08, 09, 2010, and that's when their plight in homelessness started.
Right.
They lost their homes in foreclosures, got upside down on loans, and sometimes we encounter entire families living in cars at the rest stops here in greater, greater Snohomish County, where we are.
So, we see a lot of municipalities addressing this, and we see a lot of money thrown at the problem. What do you think would really be a substantive change in addressing homelessness as a whole?
I think it's a holistic approach, and that's what we try to do. With our doctors, our nurses, our social workers, our mental health professionals, we try to wrap around those who are experiencing homelessness and understand there's healing that needs to happen. A lot of them have suffered from really traumatic events just by living on the streets, but sometimes in their past histories. And so I think that as a community, if we can look at them as human beings, as souls that are currently in a very difficult situation, and holistically try to help in that healing process, I think that would be advantageous. I think throwing money at a problem is always problematic. I think there are a couple of places in the country that are starting to figure out that the low-income housing issue is a tremendous need. Some communities are doing a better job with that than we are.
Dennis, I appreciate what you do, and I thank you for coming on this morning, and I hope you find good use for all those socks.
We will.
We have lots and lots of them. We appreciate you donating. And by the way, to learn more about what MercyWatch does, you can go to mercywatch.org and learn all about it. Also, don't forget, all month you can donate to our sock drive. This is our first year doing it, and my socks are knocked off at how amazingly well this has gone. Donation locations at Harborstone credit unions throughout the Puget Sound. You can visit Q13fox.com for more information and more ways that you can help. And right now, let's check